Let's go back to the Gold Coast now, where Carson Scott is at the Business Congress. Carson, over to you.
Thanks so much, Nadine, and welcome back to our coverage. Now, I want to talk executive recruitment, and one man who's been front and centre in that space for decades now. You'll know Morgan & Banks, a household name. Well, one of the team that set that up, Andrew Banks, in the 80s, going on to list another company, Talent 2, on the ASX 200. Phenomenal success and deep insights into really what's playing out in that space. Andrew Banks, a warm welcome to you. Just put it into context now, globally. We've been talking productivity this week, a big concern, Fair Work, that decision today. There's an immediate clamour for less is more. Is that kind of missing the real debate?
Yes, I think it's going to accelerate the fact that Australia has to realise that it's a wealthy country, third wealthiest in GDP per head if you look at the numbers, and so it's going to accelerate the change of jobs that's going on. We have a limited size workforce, productivity lows, the cost versus the rest of Asia. So it's going to accelerate structural change, and it's going to force political and business leaders to decide what kind of jobs can we actually afford to have in this country.
This has not just suddenly, though, occurred.
No, it's been going on for 20 years.
Indeed. So why has there been a lack of willingness to move on it, to think more creatively, to think outside the box?
Well, because I think human beings are very interesting. We can put people on the moon, we can create silicon chips, but when it comes to changing our jobs, moving suburbs, deciding career change, we're stubborn. It's a very interesting insight, but we will have to change. And nations have shown that they can do that, and we've seen some case studies of that, and Australia will be forced to do that. But we've got pockets. We've got pockets of unemployment in the western suburbs, 10%, yet the national average is under 5. We've got to find ways of moving work to people and transitioning the workforce.
Also got to find ways of stopping the brain drain, because the smartest aren't staying.
Well, that's right. The workforce also is composed of lots of different levels. It's when you've got a call centre or a factory, you can't move as much. But the knowledge workers are hugely in demand, and Australia has second largest diaspora in the world. Nearly 1 million of us are offshore at any one time, and I estimate about 680,000 workers. So to your point, 5% of our workforce is revolving around the world. They're the knowledge workers, though, more mobile than perhaps the rest of us.
Tell me about the Swisslink, why you can see us maybe following that route, so what might give us a competitive advantage if we have the gumption to adopt it?
Well, I think it's this thing that Aussies don't see ourselves as a rich country, we see others, and then so if you start thinking of us as a Norway or as a Switzerland, relatively small workforce is wealthy, and close to markets, it forces you to rethink what business you're in. And also the other thing is technology in this post-industrial age has allowed us to move work to people. So The Economist has got this wonderful article this month about Australia, the Golden State. But I think what it says is we have a unique opportunity now. We've got the proximity, no longer the tyranny of distance. We've got lots of good skills here, but we have to be very choosy about the types of jobs, the types of industries we get into. So we have to think Switzerland in the terms of being smart and saying, can we afford to make plastic bags or fly swats in Melbourne?
You're effectively saying no.
Yes, exactly. We need to think of the service mentality, the service industries backed by resources sectors and obviously high value add manufacturing. But clearly the market will speak volumes and we'll have to adapt.
Tell me about candidates and their call for companies to adapt, because expectations are not being met.
No.
Quite a high level of dissatisfaction running at the moment amongst workers. Okay, the headline unemployment numbers nice and sitting pretty.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's a recipe for complacency again.
Well, when you do the surveys, nearly 30% of any company's workforce is sort of ready to move at any one time. So that's a pretty scary number. 8% is already out the door, 30%. So that's the number you've got to focus on. So the key things that they're asking for is, give me a career path. I know I'm not here forever, but I want to know where am I going to be 2, 3, 5 years from now. Give me a plan. And of course, generation baby boomers like us, we get a bit impatient with X and Y because they dare ask the question, because of course we were never allowed to. But they're only asking the question. So they want visibility, they want to know where their career path's going, and then they want to be trained, they want to be given special projects, they want to have a voice. It's almost the Facebook transparency of life that we live in. It's got to be inside organisations.
It's not about money either.
No, it isn't.
It's almost the debate's getting hijacked by less and more, and should it have been above $20 or what are the implications? That doesn't even feature on their wish list of top what? 3 or 4?
No, exactly. It's down below sort of visibility, give me some special assignments, more responsibility. We were told 50 years ago, I think, by Hertzberg, that money's a problem if you're not getting enough of it. And human nature being what it is, we also don't want to be treated unfairly compared to the fellow worker. So the inequality within a REM system is pretty important. I don't know if you realise, but if you were paid 10% more than me, but I felt that compared to my fellow workers, it was fair, I'd be happier than you would, even though you got 10% more if you didn't feel the quality between your fellow workers was there. So, interesting insights. So money is a demotivator. It's all about this career path visibility, because young people instinctively know that if you train them, they become more valuable, and they kind of almost do a syndicated calculation on the next 40 years of stepping up, working for smart organisations that make them more valuable for the next...
Is it going to guarantee that they are locked in the company for a decade plus? That seems awfully 20th century now.
Yeah, no, exactly.
To talk to Gen Y, 7-8 jobs and sign even the first 6 years of work is not uncommon.
No, well, when I started Shell, I did some recruiting for Shell, the oil company. This is 20 years. They do a pension book in the interview. I'd like to see our audience, actually hand Generation X and Y and say, here's when you retire in 30 years. It's not going to happen. Why? Well, the business model change. I mean, it's a bit like saying, well, where's the vinyl record company? The CD arrived. Sorry. So no one can guarantee that 10-year life plan, but you can extend it by creating these career paths, by moving people around, by creating more interest. And then the other paradox is you've got to welcome them back after they've left.
Right.
How good's that? No, none of this sort of, we don't rehire. We've actually got to accept a revolving workforce of intellectual property and work out ways, competitive companies, to get them back.
Tell me about having an eye on just who's doing what and where the social media dimension to bringing new candidates on board. Where's Australia at, and where do you come into play as well? Is it ambulance at the bottom of the cliff territory where they've tried the old media and failed and are desperate?
No, for recruiting companies, it's actually been a good thing because it's reduced the cost of acquiring a candidate. So, but the bad news is it's like drinking from a fire hose. So in other words, some websites, Monster.com, which I was associated with, had 60 million resumes on it. So I think social media, LinkedIn, all of those great, LinkMe.com, all of those websites are great, but they aren't a solution in themselves. They will attract candidates, get them into the system, but then it's each company themselves to say why you should be joining me. It's what we call EVP, Employee Value Proposition. Why join Cisco versus, Hewlett-Packard? What's the value proposition to be an accountant in this bank versus that bank? And that's something which I think companies could do a lot better. What's
emerged to date, though, as the most dynamic and, I guess, effective tool that's out there?
There's
the online space.
In terms of the most effective tool,
yeah.
I think the job boards got there first. Now it's moving to vertical integration, specialised pools of candidates. So candidates are combining the job boards with, I'm an IT professional, I want to hang out with other IT professionals. So you're getting this specialisation that's coming through. And I think that's the biggest change.
Well, we'll leave viewers with that one to ponder. Andrew Banks, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
All right. Andrew Banks there, Managing Director of Talent 2. We're going to take a very short break, but back with plenty more in just a moment.